The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Living Well with Beal. Our show is a health show, a lifestyle show, and an empowerment show rolled into one. Get ready to hear some stories of success, healthy living tips, and suggestions to get motivated and live your best life. Now, here is your host, Beal.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Living Well. We are actually in Frisco, Texas today, me with Dr. Jenni Eastin, and we are welcoming you to the I'm Still Celebrating episode of Living Well. If you have ever felt the heaviness of desperation or struggled to bounce back from tragedy and loss, our guest today will strengthen and empower you. Dr. Jenni Eastin's come through infertility, grief, depression, and addiction. Welcome to the show, Jenni.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, I know you have a little bit of stomach flu today.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you pushing through for me.
Yes.
Well, you have the issues of infertility, grief, depression, and addiction that you're going to talk about. That's quite a bit today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been given several trials and also several victories. And so, my life has been full so far, and who knows what's next. But, yes, those things have gone on in my life. I have not personally been an addict, but a child of an addict.
Child of an addict.
That's right.
Yes. Mm. Well, and you grew up in San Antonio, Texas, right?
Yeah, I did.
And so growing up with a dad who was an alcoholic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. You know, nobody knew that my dad was an alcoholic. He was a very successful businessman, and he had impeccable manners. And he was just a sharp guy. And, something happened in his life, and he didn't know what to do with his pain. He and my mother got pregnant, and she carried the child all the way, full term. And Christopher, my brother, was stillborn. And, they had to take down the nursery. And so my dad lost the son he always wanted. And when that happened, he really didn't have the tools, really didn't know what to do with all of that pain. And so he just began to drink it down.
Yeah.
And what started as maybe an inability to sleep and an inability to cope became an addiction. And, of course, people who are touched by addiction or who are an addict know that addictions erode every part of your life very slowly. And so I did. I witnessed that for years. It was a heaviness in my heart, and it was a very high prayer that I prayed that God would free him from that tight web. So, that was something that was going on, but certainly not something that we talked about, and not certainly anything anybody knew. So,
wow. So how do you think that built your character?
Well, when you come out of a less than perfect situation, you begin to wonder who you can trust and who you can talk to. And I began to wonder if God was worth trusting. And, my mom was taking me to church on her own. My dad had no interest. And so, I just, I saw things other people didn't see. I had deeper thoughts and few abilities to cast my insights. So I think in terms of shaping my character, I think it pushed me into a place where I wanted to write and get these things out regardless. I really wanted to be healthy emotionally. And I wanted to be able to talk about things regardless if they were embarrassing or shameful. And I wanted to know that there was a God that was trustworthy. And so I began to cast this hope for my father to be free upon the Lord and ask him to do what I could not do.
So did you have a diary as a child?
Oh, I did.
Did you?
I sure did, and I tried to lock it up because my mom, you know how moms are when you're in middle school.
Oh, no, not me. No.
Well, my mom went after that diary. So
you didn't have a what do they call it? It's like a cover diary. I've had teens tell me they have one that they put that is not real obvious place. Yeah. And it says all these wonderful things so that they don't look for the other one. Didn't think of that.
No.
I didn't either.
No. When I was writing, it was about things that were real to me. And so, no, it was, I tried to hide it. And then, of course, at that time, we didn't have computers. And that would have been a great way to do it. I work that way now. But, yeah, I did. I had a diary.
So you wrote in your diary a lot.
I did.
Did it help you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big believer that if you can speak the truth, the shame and unhealth lives in the darkness. And I believe that if you can get it out in the light, if you have somebody that you can, talk to or tell, or just even a private place where you can mark those ideas down, I think you're on your way to being healthier.
So what happened when your mom found your diary? Did she talk to you about the things she read?
Well, my mom desperately wanted my situation and our situation at the house to look good. And that's, it was hard for her to hear the truth. And I'd asked her questions before and she denied there was a problem. And I don't blame her for that. It was simply what she needed to do to survive a very difficult situation. She certainly would not wish for me to have a father who was addicted to alcohol. And so really those conversations did not happen in full until I was much older.
As an adult?
Yes, and I actually took the initiative to go to counseling and seek help regardless of what other people were going to do in their own lives, because that's what I wanted for me.
Now, you went on to college.
Yeah.
So you were an only child.
Yeah.
And so you were still motivated to get out of the house, go off and, now did you go to college and live there?
Yeah, I did. My dad sent me to Baylor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. He said I got to pick, and so I went and visited several universities, and then he said, well, if you want me to pay, then you'll need to choose Baylor. So that was pretty easy.
Baylor in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
It's a good school. Really good school.
And that's what he thought. And so he really chose that for me because he felt like I would be surrounded by, quality people and have the Christian influence. By the time he sent me to school, he had become a Christian and
really
had started visiting church. And so that had become one of his priorities, miraculously.
That is miraculous. Truly miraculous.
Yes.
So did Baylor turn out the way he planned it to?
No. No, it didn't. And it's something actually I kind of regret about my life because I had a certain set of pain from that background and I wasn't prepared to participate in full as one would want to. I was given this fabulous opportunity and there were neat people around me. And I felt a certain depression, a certain shame, because of what I had seen and where I had come from. And so I was at the beginning of making a decision what I was going to do with my pain, whether I was going to drink it down or whether I was going to turn it over or what I was going to do. And so Baylor was really just kind of a pivotal time in my life. Or, of course, I got a degree there, but I also made some decisions there.
What decisions did you make there?
I made a decision that I would not drink it down.
Which is a lot of students drink it down.
Well, I did. I did drink it down. But I made a decision one particular day that I would not drink it down and become what my father was.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah.
Actually doing that.
Yeah, I have. It was a day that I made that decision. I was listening to my radio, and Margaret Becker, who's a singer, there was a song on the radio, and it says, just come in, Just lay that right here. Love does not care. And I thought, well, wow. Love that doesn't care about my shame and about my guilt and about my depression. Just unconditional love. And I really took that to heart and felt like, I was going to focus my life differently.
So how did you do that? You chose not to drink it down in college. So what did you end up choosing instead?
Well, I chose to get some medical help for the depression. I chose to journal it out.
Good.
I chose to surround myself with people who could handle the real truth about me and about my life. So I had an ability to seek out the safety in other people, and I surrounded myself with really, really safe people and made my world kind of small, And
that you were able to do that at Baylor. Baylor's pretty big, right?
It is.
Yeah, it's big. And maybe, quite a few people there aren't so real or aren't so comfortable with talking about hard things. But yet you found some people there that really you could do that with.
And there were more people that I could have done that with than I realized.
Yeah, definitely. I would have believed that.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I have some regrets from that time in my life because, there were others.
And you said you were an introvert, that
Yeah.
you are you, your Myers-Briggs is, not Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
But you're an
Yeah.
INTJ. What did you say? You were INB?
INFJ.
INFJ.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So an introvert. So you didn't. Introverts tend to have a smaller group of friends, but longtime friends,
Yes,
usually.
true.
Deeply long-term. And extroverts might have a lot of friends that come and go through their life, but introverts, it's amazing how long they have these friends forever.
That's true.
And so that's wonderful. So you got your bachelor's in
in special education.
special education.
Yeah, I did.
Now, how long before you went back and got your master's?
Oh, I jumped straight into that. I moved up to Dallas because my dad and my whole family had been relocated from San Antonio up to Dallas. And so, of course, then that became my new home. And I'd become very interested in helping kids who had special needs. In fact, there was one young lady, I don't know her name, but she was a drug baby. And I felt, I guess, some connection to her because she was given an unfortunate circumstance.
Sure.
And yet required to function in the world, in the school classroom, just like everybody else. And I thought, that's really not fair. I'd like to step in and be that bridge for her. And so when I finished my bachelor's, I realized I knew some things, but not enough. Mm-hmm. And it just, a master's became the natural extension of my interest in helping these kids. And so I went to UNT and did a master's in behavioral disorders and administration. And so I just put some more tools in my tool belt.
It is interesting that when you become passionate about an area, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So you realize the more you need to learn.
That's it.
So did you go directly into your doctorate then after you got your master's?
I took a year off, I believe, between the two. And I took a little break. And, I was super focused once I found my area. And I was driven and I was an achiever. And so
I was going to say that's right. Achiever, definitely.
Yeah. It was a rude awakening, though, starting my doctorate because it was a whole new game.
But it was still at University of North Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was it different?
Well, the expectations were that you knew what was expected and that you were going to produce this perfect piece of writing. And you had so many items on your syllabus to accomplish that if you were not a type A out front person, you were going to get swallowed up by this degree.
Wow.
So it really, I had to change the way that I thought and the way that I produced.
Definitely going from an introvert to being a speaker now and a writer. A writer, you can stay an introvert.
Yeah.
Speakers kind of have to come out of that comfort zone. So you've since gotten married. So when did you get married? While you were in school or after school?
Well, I was in school. Yeah, I was halfway through my doctorate
Oh,
when David
doctorate.
and I, I got married, and then I I think we had a conversation at one time. Should I continue or should I not? And he said, you should. And I did. And he was supportive of that. So that took me, I think, about 4.5 years.
To get your doctorate?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I mean, it sounds like a long time, but people, if they've been through it, they know it's much harder than just going for a short amount of time, getting your dissertation done and getting out.
Yeah, it's an endurance race for sure. Yeah, it is. It is, and that's why it was just so sweet at the end when I got to deliver those last pieces of paper to my professor, and it was so sweet when I got to walk across the stage and, have my family there cheering. It was just a great victory, when you put so much of yourself into something. It's just really worth celebrating at the end, and we did.
So what did you do with that degree?
Well, I worked for 2 different school districts, and I worked with kids who needed help, with those who were not succeeding in the classroom without intervention. I created behavioral plans and just worked with their teachers to let them know that, we were going to do our best to support them and, say positive things,
So what do you call that person? Because that's not a teacher. What position is that? What would you call that?
Well, they called it at one time a crisis interventionist or, or a behaviorist. And it's different from a counselor in that, I don't sit down with kids and say, how do you feel about all this? I just say, in order to get things done, you need this set of skills. And so this is how we operate. It's very predictable. If you want to be successful with me, this is how we interact. And this is how you'll interact with your teachers. And so I taught those skills directly. We did a lot of practicing. I gave them a lot of feedback. So I did that for 2 years for one school district, and then was called by another one and they asked me if I'd be interested in opening up an alternative school in a school district where at that time they really didn't want to admit they had any problems at all. So that was very interesting.
Yes, definitely. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was. So we came together as a team and created that school and gave it a name and a culture.
That's amazing that when you talk about your childhood and the way you felt, that it created this writing desire in you to put everything down on paper. And then you went to Baylor because your dad wanted you to.
Yes.
And yet what a great background for where you were going from there. Because Baylor's a tough school. It's not super easy.
No.
And you avoided the severe alcohol binging that can just blow college for so many kids. You had a taste of it. You turned away from it.
That's it.
And decided to lead a different path.
Yes.
But doctorates, to get your doctorate, there's so much research in writing. You have to love writing, and you have to be I would say a pretty good writer by then.
Yeah.
And so it's like you took this energy and you targeted it towards a dream and a passion, though you weren't exactly sure what that was. You just kept doing where you were led at the time.
Yeah.
And look where you ended up. That's pretty incredible. Did you ever think when you were small that you would get your doctorate?
No.
I know.
Well, I would never dream of it because, who would know what that is anyway? But no, and anybody who knew me in younger years would have never pegged me for that place in life. You know, that it really was, as you say, a passion of mine to learn more. And so then it became easier for me.
Well, and you got married in that time, and because we definitely want to get into what happened after that with you going through this natural progression to have children. The infertility really was a tough, you look at how you endured so much and got married and had all these dreams for the future, and then started wanting to have children?
Yeah, absolutely.
How quickly after you got married would you say?
Well, I got married knowing that I wanted David to be the father of our children because, I looked at my past and it was never comfortable in my home to crawl up in my dad's lap and, just be. Well, when I met David, everything changed, He put my soul at rest and I thought, oh, Lord, thank you for this. This is what I want for my kids. A very safe place. So before we ever got married, it was something that I could envision.
Well, and we will come back right after break to talk more about that, what happened after that, and how you endured to really let people know about infertility and what you suffered. And so we'll come back right after the break, and we'll see you right after the commercial with Living Well.
Right.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
There are 13 unbreakable habits of truly enlightened people. These life-changing habits are discussed on Dream the Life, Live the Dream with Dr. Yomi Garnett. We'll offer an excursion in self-discovery, along with wisdom that will allow you to stay on the correct path toward your destiny. You can find excellence in your life. Tune in every Thursday at 7 a.m. U.S. Pacific Time. That's 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel for this exciting transformational journey.
Are you looking for life's answers? How about the meaning of true self? Can you really be a better person overnight? Well, good luck with that. Now, if you want to know more about this insane world and life we lead, tune in to Absurd Psychology, Straight Answers Without All the Bull, hosted by Dr. Gary Bell. You'll learn about how the brain operates under different psychological conditions, some common sense. Heck, you might just actually learn something. Listen Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern on Voice America Empowerment.
Build your better business. Achieve that goal. Make good on that resolution. The Voice America Empowerment Channel. It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed.
You are listening to Living Well with Ann Beal. We'd love to hear from you with comments and questions about the show. Please send us an email to ablivingwell@gmail.com. That's ablivingwell@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to Living Well. We are talking about infertility and grief and being transformed in miraculous ways. And I have Dr. Jenni Eastin here. Dr. Jenni, can you let the listeners know how to get a hold of you? What would be the best way? I've been waiting till the end, but if they're listening to this segment, they will not hear that. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Well, I have a website, and that's a good first start, and that's www.JenniEastin.com, and I spell my name a little bit different. It's JENNI and then EASTIN.com. You can go there, or you could start at hopehasavoice.com. That's kind of my parent ministry. And there are ways to contact me through the site, or you can email me at admin@JenniEastin.com.
So you have lots of ways to be contacted.
Oh, sure.
And Jenni speaks all over the world. She would love to speak in any of the topics that you hear. And so let's get back to what we were talking about, because you got married and then you were going to start your life. You married this wonderful man that would be a great father to your children.
Yes.
And you when you picked him, because how old were you when you got married?
27.
Oh, so you planned. Look at you, 27.
27.
You did well.
Yeah.
And so you were ready. You were ready to have kids. How often, how much time did it take before you got married till you started really planning children?
Well, we got married and we did a lot of traveling and we had a fun time, and I was in the middle of finishing this degree, and so that obviously was not the time to have kids.
No.
And so as soon as I graduated, I think I was 5 days shy of 30 when I graduated with my PhD. At 30, we looked at each other and said, okay, now it's time to start a family. And so, we did what every other couple does. We charted the days and, worked towards that goal.
And how did that go?
It was sad. It was really, really sad. We were involved in a Sunday school class, and there were 13 other couples, and we watched one by one every single one of those couples turn up pregnant, and just wondered why, things were not working for us. And those who have been through infertility understand that it's a different kind of grief. It's a grief of not being able to control the process. It's a grief of not understanding. And then came the tests and all the research, and I grieved the lack of normalcy in my life.
So how long did it take before you started being told you were infertile?
Well, they give you about a year, and then they send you off to a specialist. So I found myself sitting in a specialist's office and talking directly to a doctor and receiving the news that the chances of me becoming pregnant were almost impossible, slim to none.
Was that because of your age? Because you were 30 by then, right?
Yeah, I was 31 at that time.
31.
And they ran some different tests, and they can tell how your reproductive system is working and whether or not you're going to be a good candidate for, treatment like in vitro. And what they saw is I had advanced reproductive aging. So for whatever reason, the things in my body that should be working were working more like if I had been 43 years old or 45 rather than 31. So it became obvious that time was of the essence, and we would need to move along quite quickly.
That was very frustrating, I'm sure, because there's women that have children in their 30s and some women that have children in their 40s, which is quite late, but it is possible for some women. It seems like most women, by the time they're 30, it's much harder, though.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and even still, I wanted to trust that God has a plan for each of us, whether you're 30 or 25 or 40 or whatever. I knew that my plan was unique for my life. And I had no way of seeing how this was going to resolve. And I felt like I was captured in this very small space. And no matter how hard I wanted to get out of this place and see the future, I was still in that space. And it really, it did frustrate and confuse me because, as I told you, I was an achiever. And when I wanted things to happen, I worked very hard. Mm-hmm. And this was one thing that on my own, I could not budge. I literally could not budge it.
Couldn't make it happen.
Mm-mm.
So is that when your depression set in, you think?
Well, I think there's a certain grief that goes along with it. I wouldn't say that I was depressed at that time. I was very, very quiet. I spent a lot of time, yes. I did a lot of research. I spent a lot of time reading my Bible. I would just open up the book and just ask God to tell me some stories. And He did, about barren land and brokenness and longing and what He could do with these small spaces. And so I just journeyed it out. It was long. It was hard. And there were a lot of no's when I wanted there to be a yes.
So you tried the in vitro? Mm-hmm. What all did you try?
Yeah. So understanding we would need to move quite quickly, we went through the first in vitro attempt, and they did everything they could to help me. And they, recruit these eggs, and then they put it in the petri dish, and then they implanted it back in me. And I had good quality embryos. They tested it and everything. It's amazing what they can do today. But they would implant these babies in me, and then there would be a no on the pregnancy test. So that was cycle 1, in vitro number 1, there was a no. In vitro cycle 2, there was twin boys that were inserted back into me, and that was a no. There was one girl from the second cycle that was held back and frozen because they won't put in any more than 2 at a time. Mm-hmm. So she was frozen.
Oh God!
And
and waiting.
Yes, she was frozen at the bottom of a nitrogen tank, and people could not understand that unless I actually show a picture of what a nitrogen tank looks like. But and then we did a third cycle with a different doctor. David encouraged me to move my records over to another doctor and try a little different protocol. And from that cycle, the babies were recruited, and before they could be put back into my body, a polyp, which is a small skin tag, had developed in my uterus, and they were unable to place those babies back into my body. Wow. So they had to stop the cycle and freeze those babies as well. So I had, one little girl from the second cycle and then several embryos from the third cycle that were frozen at that time.
And none of them took, as we say. None of them were viable.
Yeah. We lost a lot of babies, and we knew that they were good quality babies because they're able to do this pre-genetic diagnostic testing, which tells them the quality of that baby. There's no abnormalities, trisomies or anything. So,
the technical side of it, when you hear the technical side of it, you don't really get what you were going through emotionally, you and your husband.
True.
How long of a time was this?
At least 4 years.
Wow, 4 years of up and down and thinking it went up and down and up and down.
Right. And it's a real commitment going through all of this. You have to travel to the facility every other day, and they take your blood, and the gals will use their sonogram to measure the follicles, the developing eggs, and all of this is just, you're really just at the mercy of the process, and you're following a calendar on your fridge and just hoping it would work, just investing, all of your time and your thoughts and your hopes in this process.
But you didn't give up.
Well, I wanted to.
You wanted to.
Well, I think I did, because I had no vision for how things would turn out. David urged me to go through the third cycle, and had I not utterly loved him and really hoped for him to be a father, I think I would have just, taken a bow. I would have just, checked out on the whole thing. But because that was his wish, that's what we did.
So that last one really wouldn't have been what you would have done. What would you have done if you were ready to give up? Would you have adopted? What would you have done?
I still don't know the answer to that.
Oh, you've been asked that before.
Well, I don't know, because when you're in these situations, you think of things that you'd never thought of before. Mm-hmm. And other people would ask me, what would you do? And I still don't know. There was talk of egg donors, and there was talk of adoption. And literally, I really didn't know. I would just have rested.
Rested.
Mm-hmm.
Rested.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening? What did you end up doing?
Well, we have these frozen babies now, and the doctors were telling me that my immune system was the problem, and if they gave me this drip in my arm, an IV, this immune-regulating drug, I would be the same as every other woman, and my body would be able to carry now these children. And I heard that information. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe it in full because I know the immune system is volatile. And so that scared me, and I felt like, God had entrusted me with these little lives. I needed to find the highest and best, the safest place for them to grow.
So you wanted to make sure that they came into the world well, healthy, and you didn't want to chance that.
No, I just wanted to make a decision that I would not regret, and put them in a position where they could flourish if God had intended them to. And so it just, interestingly enough, came about that one of my clients, my real estate clients, was a surrogate mom.
Wow. That is incredible.
Well, it is. Yes, it is. The whole thing is incredible. And it was a journey. And so she said, have you considered this? And I said, well, no, I haven't until now. And so she began walking me through this process and actually helped me find the first surrogate mother. She was living in Houston, and we were up here in Dallas, and we hit it off and became fast friends, and I trusted her. I trusted the way that she took care of her body. She had, I think at that time, 5 children, healthy children, and she was a proven carrier. And so we chose her. David and I both did. We interviewed the family and got to know them. We chose her. And then we started another process, which was a legal process of making sure that everybody understood that these children that would be implanted were legally the children of David and myself.
Mm-hmm. So there's really a lot more to it that people don't realize.
Oh, sure.
First, you find a surrogate mom. So there's a way to do that. There's a process that you go through that this lady who came to your real estate business knew. And so she kind of indoctrinated you in what goes on with that.
Yes.
And that was very encouraging.
Yes. It was light on my path, right?
And it was a blessing that God brought that to you. And so then you found a mom that was a carrier.
Yes.
And she had 5 wonderful children, 5 very healthy children.
Yes.
And so you went ahead and she carried your baby? Both babies? Or one at a time?
She carried one.
Okay.
The third recruit had produced a couple of frozen embryos. And so it's just amazing. I wish that you could have been there because it was sacred. They rehydrate these cells and they begin to grow in a petri dish.
Wow.
After 2 years of being frozen in a nitrogen tank. And then they take these cells, these embryos, and they feed them up in a tube and place them specifically into the uterus of another woman after she has prepared her body to be a receptor for this life. So they've created, a healthy environment in her uterus. So it was a big commitment for her too.
And it's very medical as far and technical what they do with her even to get her uterus ready.
Yeah, and she had no guarantees that it was going to take. So it was blind obedience on her part.
Wow.
And we are forever grateful. There's no way that I can live long enough to tell her what great joy she has filled my life with. She carried Grant from the third cycle. She actually got pregnant with 2. One fell out, and a great big hemorrhage actually threatened to take Grant's life, but even in the womb, God's hand was on him. Wow. She delivered him on July 18th of 2008, and we were, in Houston.
Oh, my gosh.
I was just thinking about it the other day. I was just thinking about what a glorious day it was when Grant was born. And she birthed this child, and I knew that he was mine. I mean, I knew logically.
Oh, gosh, yes. With everything that you guys had gone through, that was just incredible. Yeah. And I see the light as you light up as you're telling the story. It's pretty fascinating. And I know that people that haven't been through that really just don't understand. So if your first child was born when?
July 18th of 2008.
And when did you start this journey of children, trying to have children, that whole thing? 2004?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, or 2003.
2003. You had no idea what was ahead of you when you started that.
Oh, no. No way. And no way to know how it was going to end when we went through it. And that was just so difficult.
And your dad was sober at the time, had gotten sober and become a Christian, and he was at the hospital when this baby was born, right?
Yes.
That is amazing.
It is the most divinely appointed event that I have ever been a part of. Because my father had been sober for 14 months, and he checked himself into a facility in Grapevine and got the help that he needed and support. And I just strongly recommend that for other people, for them to really get professional help. Yeah. But he had done that. He'd been sober, and I was enjoying him so much, his presence and his kindness, and really just discovering who he was underneath all the layers, all those years of addiction. So it was a blessing to have him sober, and then even more so to have him at the hospital when this baby was born, and knowing that many years before he had lost his own son, and yet he saw this son, mine, being delivered into the world, happy and whole.
And he knew the whole process that you had been through, your family.
Yes.
Yes. So they were probably, it was such a grateful, wonderful blessing. That whole coming about for Grant. And Grant knows what a miracle he is.
Well, in many ways, yes. He does, because we don't fail to tell him what a blessing he is and how grateful we are. In terms of the medical and the technical, all of this, this has not been shared with him yet, and it won't make a difference one way or the other. He's as normal as any other child. He has a unique story, and at the right time we'll share it with him. But
I can see why. That is so neat. And when we come back from break, we will go into what happened after the baby was born and just go into some more grief and loss and then success and overcoming and enduring to really motivate and empower you guys out there.
Yes.
So after the break, we want to hear you back soon. Just meet you back here at Living Well with Ann Beal.
Follow us on Twitter for more great ideas at Voice America Empowerment.
What makes you the best you can be? Is it money? Is it success? Maybe it's love, a good career, home, and family. Could it be a bit of all of these things? Be the best you can be with Dr. Linda Sanicola, along with her featured guests, will bring you the tools that could be the answer to the questions you've been asking. You'll get to the root of some of the problems that have been keeping you from being the best you can be and tackle them head on. Listen every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
You have the power within to achieve anything, be it wealth, balance in your life, getting over your fears and roadblocks, and creating a positive impact on the world. Let Darby Mack show you how on the Powerful, Passionate, Prosperous Woman Show. Darby will bring you the tools and tips that you need to make it all happen with engaging guests and topics that will help you make your dreams come true. The Powerful, Passionate, Prosperous Woman Show is heard live every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on Voice America Empowerment.
We're on Facebook along with some of the greatest minds of the world, and that includes you. Visit us on Facebook at Voice America Empowerment.
You are listening to Living Well with Ann Beal. We'd love to hear from you with comments and questions about the show. Please send us an email to ablivingwell@gmail.com. That's ablivingwell@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back. This is Ann Beal in Frisco, Texas with Dr. Jenni Eastin. We just finished in the last segment talking about Jenni coming through infertility and placing in vitro embryos in a surrogate mom.
yes.
And these two embryos that had been frozen
Yes.
in a nitrogen tank.
That's right.
And then uploaded into a syringe and
Yeah.
put it to the
Yeah,
baby.
right.
And Grant was born. So
Yes.
that was very exciting. And your dad, all sober from his alcohol addiction.
Yes.
14 months, you said?
Yeah.
He was there. He was involved. It was just such a wonderful family blessing for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to pick up from there.
Mm-hmm.
And such a great time. That would be a mountaintop time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what-
oh, yes. And we went to Niagara Falls, David and I did, and I had a picture taken of me just with the water falling behind and me just looking up into the sky and smiling and celebrating. And I actually had that picture printed out, and I gave it to everybody that I knew. And I said, when people ask you how I'm doing, will you let them know that I'm celebrating on the mountaintop? God has done what no man could have done for me.
And that's part of the topic I'm still celebrating.
Yes.
Right? And that picture on your website.
Yes.
When your hands are up. Is that from them?
That's it.
Oh, my gosh. That's an awesome picture.
I love it.
Well, okay. So that was wonderful. So when did you go to Niagara Falls? How far after that?
Oh, well, we took a trip as a couple to Niagara Falls while Grant was being carried.
Oh.
So, yeah, we were expectant, and we knew that this surrogate mother had everything taken, she was taking care of everything. And so we just enjoyed ourselves for the last moments being a couple.
Actually, I'm glad you did that because people don't realize, do they, that when their first child comes.
Oh, it changes a lot.
It changes. And did you fall in love with your child and more than your husband?
Did I love my child more than my husband?
You know what I'm saying. Men sometimes feel like they have this wonderful wife and they have all this time together and everything's so wonderful. Then this wonderful, cute, adorable, just incredible being is born, and you have no idea. I mean, you just aren't prepared for how wonderful that is. And lots of moms can forget their husbands at times. You know, they just throw themselves into being a mom and they forget their husbands are there, kind of.
Well, possibly I was different. I really needed him. When we brought this child home from the hospital, I said, "Now, David, remind me, what is my job as a mother?" And he said, "Well, you feed the child and you bathe them and when they cry." And I said, "Okay, thank you for the reminder," because I had not been schooled in motherhood. And so I knew that I should be doing a lot of things, but none of it really came natural for me. And so we really worked through it together. I wouldn't say that I was immediately just overwhelmed with, the know-how and this fierce love for my son. It really grew as he grew.
As he grew.
Yes.
Well, and we took a class before. I was the youngest of many children, and I had been taken care of. I had not taken care of any children. Mm-hmm. So, like my older sister, who was 7 years older than me, she took care. She helped a lot. Mm-hmm. My brothers did too. I did not. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I had no idea, and I was freaking out. So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to go take a class." So I took this class the first year, from 0 to 12 months. Mm-hmm, and then after that, I was like, "Is there another class?"
Yeah.
12 one day, 12 month and one day, 2. And so for you, you don't know. No. You don't actually know. There are some people who they've taken care of their little brothers and sisters and they know how. And so for you also, since you hadn't been the one delivering the child, you didn't have that body recovery you had to go through. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was wondering if you went to Niagara. Not soon after that, but you had a newborn baby to take care of.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't have the experience of birthing him. Mm-mm. Luckily, my surrogate had just an overwhelming desire to let me be a part of the process, and so David and I recorded ourselves singing songs and reading books, and the surrogate wore a I don't know if it was like an iPod or MP3 or something on her belly, and let the baby hear this, because one of my greatest hopes was after this baby was born and I began to speak, that he would recognize my voice.
That is a neat thing. Do they always do that?
Oh, no. It was really something that she gifted me with, was allowing me to be, really a personal part of the carrying process. We attended most all of the appointments, and, I was concerned about my son in terms of him being healthy. I was equally concerned about her and making sure she was, felt cared for and loved and all of that.
Well, I wanted to talk about what happened a few days after. I guess it was like 28 days after the baby was born.
You mean with my father?
Yes.
Well, my father began having some problems. He was feeling weak and not able to. He didn't have the energy to sustain tasks anymore. So I'd ask him, "Hey, Dad, can you stop by after you go to Lowe's and hang out with Grant and I?" And I could tell by his voice he was a little bit saddened to have to tell me, "Jen, can we do that another day? It's just, I really want to, but I think I need to go home and rest." And it was very unlike him. He was a very hardy man. And so, you don't ever want to think the worst. But we did notice, that things had changed. And the next thing I knew, they were putting him asleep and looking with scopes down into his abdomen. And the next thing I knew, my mother was telling me, there's some cancer involved here. And she began to tell me the different parts of his body that were affected. And at one point, I just, put up my finger to say, "I understand you have more to share, but I simply have had enough. I'm going to just stop this conversation at this point.
I would think that would be overwhelming, because basically what she was telling you is he had cancer throughout his whole body.
That's true.
And that would came out of nowhere.
That's true.
Because you didn't have any idea.
Yes. Yeah. We really had no idea that was coming, and it was certainly not the last thing that I would have expected to deal with. I had a 2.5-month-old son, and now this news that cancer was all through him. It was stage 4. Everybody understands stage 4 cancer is the worst news that you can receive. And we knew our time was limited. I found myself asking the doctors very pointed questions. And I'm not sure I'd do it that way again, because I was not prepared for the answers. I was asking, okay, since we have this, what are we going to do? What is the result of this cancer? How long does my father have?
Because with your personality and the achiever personality, you'll just work hard. You'll do what you have to do. Your body would have probably gone into shock a little bit, I would think. So you were kind of numb. Just tell me what to do and we'll do it. Just
yeah. Give me the information. Hit me straight on with it, and we'll deal with it.
And were they hitting you straight on?
The doctor took me aside and said, your father's on a journey, and you are going to just go along with him on his journey. He said, you've asked very pointed questions, and I think you deserve answers, and so I'll tell you. He has no more than 6 months, and more like a month.
More like a month.
More like a month. And so I shared that information with my mom, who I literally could see it flying over her head. It was just not making contact.
That might not have been a bad thing. I mean, for her, she just couldn't cope with that.
Yeah, and we all deal with it in different ways.
So did he pass within a month?
Yeah, he passed 28 days later.
That's where the 28 days was.
28 days later.
Wow.
Yeah, once we had the diagnosis, we understood that some of his systems, his liver, his kidney, they were already beginning to fail. And so he was sent home from the hospital from that set of testing on hospice. There's literally no time to wrap our minds around this. All we knew is that it would be impossible for Mom to care for him alone, because he was weak at this time. So,
wow, the personality type often that can become an alcoholic. They're very wonderful, loving, compassionate, kind people usually. They are very gifted, and they have anxiety.
Absolutely.
And so when they're young, if they find alcohol before they find something else to help them cope.
That's it.
Alcohol, it's like liquid courage. It kind of calms them down. They feel like one drink or one glass, one beer or two. But even after one, they feel more like everyone else. They feel more relaxed, more calm. And so, and if it just worked like that, that would be great. But alcohol over time makes you more anxious. And starts causing insomnia. But often these are people who turn their anger inward because it's not really acceptable to them.
Oh, yeah.
And so they turn all that inward, and they're really nice people. They're more pleaser type people. They turn it inward, and it slowly just turns. And they say that personality type is a kind of a C personality type, meaning cancer prone. Because they turn all those bad emotions inward. Because they don't want to handle them inappropriately, what they call inappropriately, which is bad anger.
Yeah.
And so they go in, they haven't really learned the skills of healthy coping with anger.
Right. How
to just handle it. It's a God-given emotion, anger. And it's not the anger that's the problem. It's what you do with it that's the problem. And so they don't want to be this yelling, inappropriate, loud person. Because maybe they had that when they were younger, or their example of that was unacceptable to them. And so they go inward. And they don't really, and then when drinking, the anxiety starts from turning it inward more. Well, I guess it starts more from the giftedness if they're more obsessive. Giftedness is a wonderful thing. Obsessive compulsive is a blessing. It can just become, with stress and trauma long term, it's impairing and can become a disorder. And so the drinking can help that. And it's too bad that over time it can make them so sick.
Oh, absolutely. And it's exactly as you say that, when you talk about neurochemicals and serotonin in the brain, which is our happy, feel good chemical, and dopamine, another happy, feel good. When you drink those, it heightens those levels of chemicals, but over time, as you drink, you actually lower the amount of chemicals that you need. And so addictions, they take your dignity first, and then they take everything else.
Right, slowly but surely.
And it's a very helpless feeling watching somebody go into this cycle, because it is a shame-based addiction, and it's not something they want to talk about. It's the last thing they want to be. And I was lucky in this that, when I kind of went through a hard time in my life, my father looked at me and he said, Jen, I see the heap of trouble you're in. This is when I was maybe a teenager. He said, but I also, in my mind, I can see the woman that you're going to become. I can't wait to see what God's going to do with you. And so he was a man of great vision, and he gave it to me. And at the end of his life, prior to him getting sober, I looked at him and I said, Dad, you see all these other men in your life, and they're giants. And you would never compare yourself to them, but to me you are just like him. I said, the saddest thing that I think could ever happen is you dying feeling that you are not a giant of a man because you have this addiction.
That was a wonderful thing to say to him. So did he become that giant of a man quickly?
Well, there was a series of events. Because God's relentless, he once he declares a victory on a life, he pursued my dad. That was one of many conversations that happened in a short period of time. And before we knew it, Dad was circling around Valley Hope and Grapevine, and checking himself in, which I would have never bet on that. I hoped for it with all my heart, but I would have never bet on that.
That is such a wonderful thing that he came through that. And he came through it, and you had so many blessings with him coming through it, and you got to know Dad.
Yes. And
you got him to be such an important place in your life at an important time, to be the man you always wanted him to really be. And when he died with dignity.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I say I'm still celebrating, is because once you have a victory like that, nobody can come and take that from you.
Nobody can take that from you.
No.
And I think that for you, everything you've been through, and you've gotten into speaking about this, you travel, you write about it, and it's turned you into it's amazing how all these trials and the celebrating and the blessings and the empowerment has really helped you bless so many other people. And I just thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure and my privilege.
And we will have you on again to talk more about Jenni's accomplishments since her dad's death and everything that's happened in her family since then. A lot of wonderful blessings. She did have another child. And we just would love for you. You can go to her website, JenniEastin.com. She has a book coming out, The Purest Gift.
Yes.
And you can find out about that on her website. And thank you so much for joining us with Living Well. Take care, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you again for joining us. Living Well with Ann Beal airs live every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We can't wait to see you again next week.